Did you know 1950s housewives had kitchen tricks that could save a ruined pan, tenderize tough meat, and keep cheese fresh for days without modern gadgets? To them, these weren't just hacks, they were survival. And the best part? These forgotten secrets still work today. Here are 25 clever kitchen secrets from the 1950s that saved time, money, and made every meal better. A tiny pinch of salt in your coffee might sound strange, but 1950s housewives swore by it. Pre-ground coffee back then wasn't always fresh or smooth, and sometimes that morning cup tasted more bitter than bold. A pinch of salt cuts through that bitterness instantly, leaving a richer, rounder flavor without adding sweetness. The experience was more than taste. It was about maximizing every sip when groceries were precious, and wasting coffee was not something a housewife could indulge in either. Housewives needed to make good use of whatever they had, and this little-known trick became part of their arsenal. Even today, if you pour yourself some coffee that is sharper than you anticipated, a pinch of salt can remedy it. It takes a little action with a little consequence and turns what was a disappointing brew into a worthwhile cup of coffee. The beauty of this trick is that it is cheap and cost-free and takes no special equipment, just a pinch of salt and a steady hand. Wilted lettuce or limp celery? Ice water was a secret tool used by housewives in the 1950s. Simply dumping all the vegetables into a bowl of ice water could revive limp vegetables or improve crispness. Science is obvious. Cold determines all cell walls to rehydrate and restores to crunch and snap. Before refrigeration, produce tended to wilt quickly, and throwing away vegetables as waste was not an option when every meal counts. This trick was not only practical, but almost fell into the realm of magic, as what looked like scraps could easily once again become a star. Ice water baths saved pennies, reduced waste, and always provided a fresh-looking salad or side dish. Even today, when your veggies droop after a long day in the fridge, a quick soak in cold water can make them crisp, as if freshly picked. It's a small step with a big payoff, proving that clever, simple methods often work better than expensive gadgets or treatments. Housewives knew it then, and savvy cooks still rely on it today. If you're enjoying these clever kitchen secrets so far, give this video a like and subscribe so you never miss more timeless tips, tricks, and vintage hacks from kitchens of the past. Blind baking a pie crust? The 1950s solution was delightfully simple. Toss a few coins or dried beans onto the crust to keep it flat. This prevented that dreaded soggy bottom and ensured even baking. Today we have pie weights, but back then housewives had to improvise with whatever was on hand. It wasn't just a trick, it was survival. A flaky crust could make or break a meal, especially when desserts were a rare treat. Coins were practical, easy to remove, and did the job perfectly. Kids learned to watch carefully because a clink of a coin falling out of place could ruin hours of work. This hack shows how simple thinking created reliable results. Even modern bakers could take a page from this book. Sometimes the best tools aren't sold in stores. A few coins, a steady hand, and patience could turn a humble pie into a masterpiece. It was creativity born from necessity, and it saved more than just pies. It saved pride and avoided wasted ingredients. Grease on clothing was a nightmare in the 1950s. Laundry was laborious, soap wasn't always strong, and replacing stained clothes wasn't easy. Here comes the salt lowly savior. It was simply sprinkling salt right onto a fresh grease spot, and it would absorb the oil before it had a chance to set and done, often saving a beloved dress or shirt. It was fast, effective, and didn't involve harsh chemicals or scrubbing. Housewives understood the value of saving garments. They weren't just clothes. They were carefully budgeted investments. Kids ran around barefoot, buttered bread in hand, and somehow that grease ended up on aprons, pants, or tablecloths. Salt was always nearby, ready to act, quietly rescuing fabric from disaster. Even today, if a drop of oil lands on your shirt, sprinkling salt can still help. It's proof that some old-school tricks endure, not because they're flashy, but because they work. This was a simple, reliable, and essential part of kitchen life, showing that survival in a home didn't just mean feeding people. It meant protecting every little resource. A slice of bread might seem ordinary, but in 1950s homes, it became a lifesaver. Broken glass? Press a soft piece of bread over the shards and watch it pick them up safely. With barefoot kids running around, this trick was pure genius. No need to risk fingers or toes with a broom or cloth. The bread absorbed the sharp fragments with minimal effort. It was a small, everyday act of safety that made kitchens less dangerous. Housewives often repeated it for years, quietly teaching children the value of thinking ahead and improvising with what was at hand. Even now, if you drop something fragile, this trick works just as well. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Beyond practicality, it demonstrates how 1950s kitchens blended safety, efficiency, and resourcefulness. Bread wasn't just food, it was a tool, a protector, a small hero in the life of the home. Bacon was precious in the 1950s, and housewives had a clever way to store it: a light dusting of flour between slices. This simple trick prevented them from sticking together in the fridge or lard bucket, making it easy to pull out exactly what was needed. Beyond convenience, it helped bacon fry up crisp and even, no tearing, no clumping. Flour also extended its short shelf life, slowing the moisture that could cause spoilage. Kids loved the smell sizzling in the pan, and mothers loved that each piece came out perfect every time. This was more than just a trick. It was a small act of kitchen mastery. Even today, cooking bacon in batches where the slices are separated helps them cook thoroughly, which is indicative that old-school methods stand the test of time against their modern counterparts. A touch of flour, a steady hand, and breakfast was done just right. Though housewives had not plenty of gadgets or works of art, they had enough wit and resourcefulness to turn simple ingredients into pretty clever routines. A pot of water bubbles furiously on the stove, and you're juggling dinner, the kids, and a dozen other distractions. Suddenly, chaos. Water threatens to spill over. In the 1950s, housewives had a surprisingly simple solution: a wooden spoon laid across the top of the pot. That's it. No fancy timers, no fancy gadgets, just physics and a stick. The starchy water would hit the spoon, break apart the bubbles, and stop itself from overflowing. This plain wooden spoon was a quiet hero. It let moms handle multiple dishes at once, saving both dinner and the stove from disaster. It was always present. It was a tool that worked every single time like clockwork. And even today, modern cooks use this low-tech tool when cooking and multitasking in a hectic kitchen. It's more than a clever tip. It's a reminder of the resourcefulness of the 1950s kitchen. Ingenuity didn't mean complicated machines. It meant knowing how to use what you had, understanding simple science, and making cooking less stressful. Sometimes the most powerful tools are the ones quietly sitting in your kitchen, ready to save your meal and your sanity without any fanfare. Brown sugar turning into a rock-hard brick was a nightmare. Housewives had an easy fix. Drop a marshmallow or a slice of bread in the container. The sugar absorbed just enough moisture to stay soft, scoopable, and ready to sprinkle into cookies, cakes, or coffee. It was a small, clever hack that prevented waste and kept baking on schedule. The fact that this method is still successful today shows that the best solutions are often the simplest. No fancy storage systems, no chemical additives, just smart thinking and a tiny addition of moisture. It saved both sugar and frustration. This secret also highlights the ingenuity of gingered-up 1950s housewives. Stretching ingredients, keeping the kitchen running with the items on hand. In the 1950s, although plastic wrap was still a rare household item, housewives shared in the same problem of keeping cheese from becoming moldy. The answer was wax paper. By simply wrapping a block of cheese in wax paper, this allowed the cheese to breathe, but be kept protected. This resulted in cheese that lasted longer, prevented wet, slimy spots from forming, and maintained texture and flavor. Cutting or crumbling a wedge of cheese straight from that wrap was efficient and made meals faster and more enjoyable. It wasn't just about protecting food, it was about monetizing every food dollar spent and making cooking a little easier. Wax paper was inexpensive, practical, and required no specialty tools or containers to use. It showed how a little planning could extend important foods' lives, prevent waste, and enhance satisfaction. Wax paper is still a reliable friend to cheese. It has demonstrated that sometimes the simplest tools are the best ones. In a time when there wasn't refrigeration with fanciful technology or hard-side containers for protecting food, only creative ingenuity could do the trick. Housewives used clever, low-tech tactics to make kitchens run smoother. Long before the days of chemical cleaners, the kitchen of the 1950s shined with lemon. Housewives used it to scrub cutting boards, clean aluminum pans, or freshened up the sink. The acid cut grease, lifted stains, and left a fresh scent behind. It was cheap, natural, and effective. No harsh chemicals needed. Even a few lemon peels simmered in water would perfume the house while cleaning the stovetop. This was ingenuity at work, turning a food item into a cleaning tool. Today, lemon is still used for natural cleaning, showing that some secrets truly stand the test of time. In a period when every penny counted, the kitchen had to be efficient, and the lemon became an everyday miracle, cleaning, freshening, and adding a touch of brightness to both surfaces and spirits. In the 1950s, bread was sacred. There was no way to waste a whole loaf, even if it was inevitable that some slices would go stale here and there. Fortunately, housewives at that time had a clever trick. They would use a damp cloth, dip it in milk, wrap it around the stale bread, and warm it in the oven. The moisture would soften the crust and bring new life to the inside. The bread we missed was dosed back to life. It wasn't gourmet, but it was functional. It only required simple supplies and a little time, no fancy equipment, difficult recipes, or unusual substances. Even families were able to eat sandwiches or toast or a quick snack without throwing out a single slice of stale bread. This old trick was more than a convenience. It was about maximizing every ingredient and always respecting food. Today, while we don't think twice about throwing out stale bread, we can still revive it with a quick splash of milk and warm it up. It serves as a reminder that ladies did more than just prepare meals. They also stored food. Accidents in the kitchen were inevitable. Steam, boiling water, hot pans. But housewives had quick, natural remedies. One of the most common? Cabbage leaves. The cool, moist leaves reduced pain and swelling when applied to small burns. Although they were not magical, they were useful and accessible in situations where creams or gels were not available. Cabbage leaves also carried a faint sweetness that made the sting less sharp and were gentle enough for children. Housewives didn't just patch wounds. They relied on what the pantry offered, turning ordinary vegetables into first aid. It was comfort and care rolled into one. Cabbage leaves are still sometimes used in natural therapeutic approaches to a variety of ailments today, and is a testament to how practical, resourceful thought persisted. Before modern burn ointment could be found in every corner store, this simple trick saved many tears and doctors' visits. It's also a reminder that kitchens of the 1950s were not only about cooking, it was about care, survival, and smart improvisation. A cabbage leaf may seem like a plain, wild plant, but in the right hands, it was an instant, soothing healer. Cool, effective, and entirely natural, cabbage leaves were evidence that our elders had more sense than was sometimes indicated. They did have wisdom. Bananas, apples, and even less common fruits like avocados weren't always perfectly ripe when purchased. Housewives had a secret weapon: newspaper. Wrapping fruit in its folds helps it ripen more quickly by trapping ethylene gas and preventing it from getting too mushy too fast. It was simple, cheap, and surprisingly effective. You could check daily, unwrap, and enjoy perfectly sweet, ready-to-eat fruit without guessing. Modern produce bags and digital timers hadn't arrived yet, but housewives had mastered nature's clock. Even today, wrapping bananas or avocados in paper accelerates ripening, a trick borrowed straight from the past. Beyond science, it was about planning. Meals and snacks needed predictability, and a little newspaper gave that control. Kids didn't have to wait too long for a sweet treat, and leftovers weren't spoiled before they could be enjoyed. Housewives relied on observation, expertise, and common materials instead of applications or expensive technology. Before the digital timer and the smart oven, baking was a careful balancing act. Leave it in too long and the cake dried out. Leave it in too short and the center was gooey. Then came the toothpick test, a simple piece of wood stuck into the center of the cake and then removed. If it came out clean, the cake was finished. It was accurate, consistent, and completely idiot-proof. Homemakers utilized this trick to guarantee success for each birthday, Sunday dessert, or bake sale for the community. The toothpick was a small hero in the kitchen, a mini event in things that cause stress and disappointment and wastage of ingredients. Even today, home bakers use it because no gadget can replace the tactile confidence of this old-school test. It was more than convenience, it was skill. Knowing exactly when a cake was ready without guessing saved time, money, and frustration. Each poke of the toothpick was like a tap on the shoulder for the cook. Well done, every time. Soap was not just a product to keep clean. It was a commodity they wanted to stretch out as far as they could. Housewives would grate little bits of soap or leftovers and press them together to make a new bar soap. It is simply impressive, but also brilliant. A little effort transformed scraps into a functional, full-sized bar, ensuring no bit went to waste. In a time when money was tight, every household item counted. Kids' hands, dishes, laundry, all got cleaned without wasting precious resources. Some people today still grate soap when creating liquid washes or when refilling soap dishes. This aspect of resourcefulness in the days gone by is still remarkable. It's not just about being cheap. It was about being respectful of materials and being clever about it. Waste not, want not was not a slogan. It was a way of life. Taking tiny fragments of soap and forming something whole shows how 1950s housewives turned necessity into habit, practicality into artistry. Every kitchen corner, every pantry shelf, and even the bathroom carried secrets for survival. In many kitchens, hard water spots were a headache. Glasses and stemware often came from the dishwasher, spotty or cloudy. For a lot of housewives, with especially hard water, they had one simple, ingenious trick: rinse everything with some vinegar. Just a quick dip in a bowl of diluted vinegar made everything crystal clean and sparkling like the day it was bought. It wasn't about fancy detergents or polishing clothes. It was chemistry in action. The mild acidity of vinegar dissolved the mineral deposits, leaving a streak-free shine. Guests might never know the secret, but the host certainly did. This trick was essential for family dinners, Sunday guests, and holiday gatherings where presentation mattered. Even today, vinegar remains a trusted hack for glassware, showing the wisdom of past generations. Housewives didn't rely on expensive products. They used what was around them, turning everyday items into kitchen allies. The sparkle of glasses also communicated a sense of care, skill, and pride of a well-run household. From wine glasses to juice tumblers, washing with vinegar kept all the glasses neat, tidy, and clean, which met with others on the table. Peeled potatoes have a mind of their own. They brown fast. And back then, there was no waiting until last minute. Housewives discovered a clever trick. Soak peeled potatoes in water with a splash of vinegar or a few drops of lemon juice. Mild acid has been able to slow oxidation and keep potatoes white and fresh. For cooks who prepared big meals, from Sunday roasts to holiday feasts, this was a lifesaver. Cooks could get a jump on preparation and not have to worry about discolored food. Timing was everything, and presentation was important. Children's lunches, family dinners, or potato salads looked perfect, even hours later. The hack was cheap, easy, and required nothing fancy. Modern kitchens still borrow this wisdom. Chefs and home cooks alike use vinegar or lemon to prep potatoes in advance. In addition to practicality, it demonstrated attention to detail. A 1950s housewife was not just cooking, she was creating a cohesive meal, ensuring every dish looked as good as it tasted. Humidity is a silent enemy in the kitchen. Salt tends to lump up, to harden, and all but stop pouring. Housewives in the 1950s finally realized a simple solution: put a few grains of rice in the shaker. It absorbed a little humidity and allowed salt to pour freely during those damp summer nights. Clever, free, and infinitely practical. No special gadgets, no moisture-proof containers, just a pinch of rice and a steady hand. This trick made seasoning easier and prevented frustration during cooking. Even today, diners and home cooks alike use this hack. Whether you are sprinkling on vegetables or seasoning stews, the rice keeps salt moving. The housewives weren't necessarily reacting. They were proactive, observing, and solving problems as they arose. A small grain of rice accomplished what complex innovations can't sometimes. It solved a vexatious problem very quietly. Dull scissors slowed everything down, from cutting patterns for sewing projects to slicing herbs in the kitchen. The solution? Aluminum foil. Fold it a few times, snip repeatedly, and the scissors regained their edge. It was quick, inexpensive, and efficient, and all you needed was a piece of foil. Housewives used the method of cutting foil to keep scissors sharp, rather than having to replace tools or pay to have them sharpened. From sewing to food prep, sharp scissors made life easier and saved time. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Proof once again that ingenuity was the blood of the kitchen in everyday life of the 1950s. It didn't just wrap leftovers, it was a tiny yet functional sharpening station, always at the ready to extend the life of an important tool. It was quick, clever, inexpensive, a secret that typifies the practical nature of the time. Cast iron was everywhere, but cleaning it could be a chore. Housewives discovered an unlikely helper, the humble onion. Cut in half and rubbed across rusty or grimy surfaces, it lifted dirt and added a bit of seasoning at the same time. No gross chemicals, no scrubbing till your hands blistered. Simply the natural friction and sulfur compounds in an onion. This was a new way to both clean and flavor, even made it simple enough to keep the pans functional and flavorful. Besides being practical, it represents the inventiveness of the 1950s kitchens, where homemakers could turn food into tools and care became craft. Throughout the process, the onion saved them time, protected their investment in cookware, and most importantly, dropped a layer of subtle flavor into the next meal. Housewives were not just cleaning, they were conserving, maximizing flavor, simplifying life in the kitchen. With each slice, with each rub, there was intention, skill, and bit of magic. An onion becomes food, a kitchen assistant with a little indirect effect on improving life for their families. Before refrigerators were reliable, monitoring fresh eggs was a daily concern. The simple yet effective float test was employed by housewives. Fill a bowl with water, drop the egg in, and watch what it does. Sinks straight to the bottom? Fresh. Floats? Time to toss it. The principle is simple. As eggs age, air pockets form, making them buoyant. It was a quick, no-nonsense check before cracking eggs into breakfast batter or custards. No thermometers, no special equipment, just water, an egg, and sharp observation. This test saved countless ruined meals, especially when eggs were more expensive or scarce. Whether breakfast for kids, omelets for Sunday, or a special dessert, all relied on knowing which eggs were safe. Old school as it is, with some serious 1940s and 1950s grit, we're still using it for exactly this reason today. Think of the resourcefulness of 1950s housewives, using the environment, observational skills, and little gadgets to solve routine problems in the everyday. Pantries, cupboards, and refrigerators can become odorous, especially without airtight modern containers. Poor housewives had an inexpensive solution: oats. Just a simple bowl placed in a cupboard, or the fridge would pull out stale odors, supplying food with a more desirous freshness. The natural fibers of oats absorbed all the moisture and neutralized odors, elevating an unassuming breakfast item into a kitchen deodorizer. An inexpensive, easy, and safe option, no chemicals or sprays involved. This life hack was great in small spaces, or when you had strong-smelling food like onions, cheese, or leftover cooked food to store. That was understated but effective. It may even be said that housewives didn't just store food, they cared for the entire environment of the kitchen. A great example of taking an ordinary pantry staple and turning it into a functional item, as well as improving daily life by providing you with a cleaner, fresher, and more efficient experience, is for usage of oats as odor neutralizers. When the kitchen lacked specialized gadgets, ingenuity filled the gap. Tinfoil was a favorite tool for 1950s housewives. Need a funnel to pour liquids into a narrow bottle? Twist and fold foil into a cone. Need a small tray for roasting or catching drips? Shape it, and it's ready. It was flexible, one-time use, and right there. This neat trick saved time, stopped spills, and avoided cleanup. Housewives weren't just following recipes, they were figuring out solutions as they went along. Foil wasn't just a method of wrapping. It was a kitchen Swiss Army knife that could shape, protect, and position whatever ingredient was necessary. Modern kitchens still borrow the concept. Foil funnels, pans, or drip trays appear everywhere. But in the 1950s, it was pure creativity and practicality. Each foil cone and tray demonstrated the ability of being resourceful, doing the job effectively without cool tools. Learning how to make use of what is around you shows that out of the box, thinking can be more than just gadgets. Dirt under nails was bound to happen when working in the garden, preparing vegetables, or clearing up after cooking. Housewives came up with a straightforward solution. Before going outside, they massaged a bar of soap under their nails. The thin layer prevented soil from embedding deeply, making cleanup after work simple and quick. No scrubbing for hours, no ruined manicure, or in this case, clean, presentable hands ready for cooking or serving. It was an elegant intersection of beauty, hygiene, and practicality. Small, thoughtful tricks like this made life smoother. Kids could help in the garden without ending up with unmanageable messes, and meals could go on uninterrupted. Modern gardeners sometimes use the same tip, proving its timeless value. Beyond convenience, it reflects the foresight and cleverness of 1950s homemakers. They combined care, efficiency, and little daily hacks to keep life running smoothly. A simple swipe of soap kept hands cleaner, work faster, and life was just a little easier. Sugar clumps almost instantaneously, especially in humid environments. The housewives of the 1950s, with an understanding of their resources as well as a determination to save every dollar, had a simple and cost-effective solution to clumped sugar, adding a carrot or a slice of apple to the container. The fruit or vegetable absorbed those extra moisture particles, keeping sugar free-flowing, thus preventing it from turning into hard rocks. It was simple, effective, and edible. There were no chemicals to distract from a home-cooked meal. This simple little trick avoided stress and ensured consistency in cooking and baking. It saved money too. Clumped sugar was less likely to be used or sometimes wasted. More than the practical aspects, there was an ingenuity to that generation. Use it as much as possible and wisely. A carrot or apple wasn't just food. It was a tiny but actual kitchen helper that worked in the background to make everything around it a little easier. Today, when bakers replicate this trick, they show us that the wisdom of those housewives lived on as well. From saving time and money to making every meal better, these tricks weren't just clever, they were essential. If you enjoyed these tips, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell to keep discovering more timeless kitchen wisdom.